Located on the highly desirable Malibu coastline, Broad Beach has long been a beacon for Hollywood's most rich and powerful. Today it serves as a perfect example of what decades of coastal erosion can do to once wide beaches. Today it has little to no beach above the high tide line. With millions of dollars of property at risk from rising tides, the owners of 121 properties are ready to pay upwards of $50 million over the next decade to secure the beach. There have been several different proposed alternatives for securing the coastline along this extremely valuable stretch of beach. The suggestions range from trucking in sand from the east to bringing in Canadian sand via barges, and most recently there has been discussion of adding an artificial reef. These very wealthy homeowners are looking at every available option to secure their beachfront property. Currently, the project is mired in controversy. The California Coastal Commission has just recently vetoed the plan to barge in Canadian sand because it wasn't the same color, and several cities are threatening to sue to stop the passing of sand moving trucks on their streets. Broad Beach serves as an example of what the positive future of coastal stabilization could look like, saving the community of homes while also restoring and re-establishing an ecological dune system. This dune system could serve as new habitat for our threatened shore species. It could also serve as a primary example of what can happen to a coastal community in this new era if they cannot reach an agreement with the California Coastal Commission. The homes at Broad Beach once sat at the beginning of a vast beach and dune system that stretched out far in front of their property lines. Today that beach is all but barely there. Poor decisions up and down the California coast have significantly impacted the annual sand budget at this beach. At Broad Beach alone, the decision to secure the coastal cliffs behind the homes has drastically reduced the sand supply. Not to mention the addition of a rock seawall in February 2010 has led to an even more rapid decline in beach size. As sea levels begin to rise and climate change begins to affect storm severity, the already threatened Broad Beach will see its current problems worsen. For hundreds of millions of years, the California coastline has been undergoing significant changes. Tectonic mobility has reshaped the coastline in almost unfathomable ways innumerable times. Sea levels have risen and receded, dropping the coast hundreds of feet in some areas. Coastal erosion has vastly reshaped sea cliffs and led to dramatic shifts in the size of beaches. On top of these long-term changes are coastline shifts on a seasonal basis, with many beaches seeing a growth in the summer and shrinkage in the cold winter months. Now, with the advent of human-influenced climate change, many of these problems will worsen with time. Despite the severity of the threats posed by long-term change, the most prominent threats facing Broad Beach are the result of wind, rain, waves, currents, and other short-term changes to sea level. More often than not, these changes are the result of massive storms and recurrent events like El Niño. Those who have lived in California for any amount of time can quickly recall the amount of damage that large waves, storm surges, and high winds can cause to the coast. These storms can significantly exacerbate beach retreat. The massive waves can easily damage coastal infrastructure, and the immense wind can rip buildings apart. When faced with excessively large and severe storms during the winter of 2010, Broad Beach did what many coastal communities did before them. They built a rock seawall. Seawalls are a double-edged sword. According to NOAA, with any activity that alters natural processes, there can be significant long-term impacts related to coastal armoring. Currents, waves, and wind normally transport sediment throughout the littoral system. Armoring of the coast can interfere with littoral transport, which in a natural state may reach a dynamic equilibrium. When the availability of sediment is reduced due to the existence of a structure, erosion can increase in nearby locations. The unintended consequences of seawalls has led many communities, Broad Beach included, to turn to supporting more ecologically friendly alternatives. By restoring the natural processes that create dunes and vegetation, beach nourishment, dredging, and dune stabilization can mitigate the natural destructive forces before they reach coastal properties. These techniques have been successfully implemented in Santa Monica at the Beach Restoration Pilot Project and in Port Hueneme, where the beach is in a state of continual nourishment. Using beach replenishment and dune stabilization are great ways to dissipate the destructive forces of the ocean. Beach replenishment and dune stabilization tend to be best used in combination. Beach replenishment involves importing sand from other beaches, harbors, or offshore locations to be added to the beach being replenished. Dune stabilization involves the reintroduction and protection of native plant species that protect dunes from erosion. All but one of the alternatives proposed for Broad Beach calls for the addition of dune stabilization to its beach replenishment project. This would substantially increase the longevity of the restored beach. Not only does beach replenishment and dune stabilization secure the coastline, but also has the added ecological benefit of restoring lost habitats and the benefit of increasing the beach's aesthetic appeal. With the winter fast approaching and the subsequent storms that come with it, the residents of Broad Beach hope to find a solution that meets the requirements of the California Coastal Commission and their needs to preserve their property.